Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest Jason Schmidt. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, you might have seen him in the Grease prequel series, Rise of the Pink Ladies, where he played Buddy Aldridge. Plus, after a successful run at Jolla Playhouse, he recently made his Broadway debut in The Outsiders as Sodapop Curtis. Please welcome Jason Schmidt. First of all, how are you? How have you been?
I'm very good. It's been a kind of grueling few weeks leading up to the Tonys here. But I'm very good. I'm having a great time doing the show, starting to figure out more ways that I can stay, mentally in shape and present and have energy available to do the show and to live my life outside of it as well. So doing good.
Yeah, you kind of have to separate like yourself from the show probably because it is such a dark-ish show
Yeah.
at the end of the
Yeah.
day. There's so many layers to the show. It has heart, but it's also a little dark and kind of sad. Very
Yeah.
sad.
For sure. There's definitely like putting myself in the headspace of somebody who feels like they're losing their little brother and they lost their best friends and it's not, and they lost their parents a year before the show begins. It's not easy to do every night, but I think luckily for me, Soda has a very loose kind of grip on life and he lives it in a way that is easier. So I think that makes it easier for my headspace.
Yes, I'm gonna get more into The Outsiders later and the iconic role you play in the show. But I want to ask, have you always known that you wanted to be an actor? And like, when was the moment that you first realized?
Yeah. I didn't always know I wanted to be an actor. I think I look back and when I was really young, I had a desire to be a musician or an actor as well. Like watching movies I really loved, especially like superhero movies and stuff. But I didn't know for a long time. I think I thought I wanted to be a basketball player when I was younger. And then I think I found out in sixth grade that I wasn't gonna do that. Um, Although I continued to play till my senior year of high school, so I loved it. Just realized that I wasn't probably gonna go professional. I found out my freshman year of high school that I wanted to do acting, and
Ooh.
it happened when I decided I was gonna quit acting altogether because I was ready to focus on basketball. I was kind of sick of getting teased for it, and I told my mom I wasn't going to do it anymore. She said that I had to do just one more show because it was Les Mis. And I
Yes.
said no. And she said, well, I'm your mom. You have no choice. And so I said yes. And then I did the show and I met my kind of future mentor and now one of my good friends who kind of reframed this thing for me to be an artistry and not just something I did for fun. And it was a beautiful experience. There's probably like 10, 15 people that did that show who still work in theater in some capacity, whether it's acting or directing or, even just auditioning and things like that. But so it was a cool, I had never experienced that type of group that took it seriously like that. And the show ended up being really good and affected people in a way. And I thought that was so powerful. And nothing that I had ever done in my life up until that point had like affected people's lives like that. And so I kind of made that shift my freshman year.
Were you familiar with Les Mis before you did the show in high school?
I think so. Yeah, it was. I didn't know it super well, but I definitely knew of it or like had seen it, or I don't know if the movie had come out at that point or what, but yeah.
It's such a staple, and I feel like it has so much influence over like everyone in the theater world, which kind of is like another project that you were involved in
Yeah.
recently. Um, but yeah, Les Mis is such a good place to start and like discover the passion
Mhm.
for acting and being on stage and stuff.
Yeah.
What role did you play in Les Mis?
I was Marius.
Ah, Good
Yeah,
role, good role.
yeah, big fan. I
So
loved playing that. I would love to do it again someday for something.
manifesting, hey,
Uh-huh.
it's still touring, and I feel like it's not gonna stop touring for a while, hopefully, because
Probably not, no.
I
I think it's a classic. There's always
yeah,
got to be some version of it out there.
yeah, I want it to like be on loop touring and like keep coming or go back to Broadway.
Yeah, that would be fun too. Some cool revival of it. I have a
That
friend that actually the same director friend who always says he would like to see new versions of the shows that we've done, like new takes on it, new spins on it. Would love to see some new version of Les Mis.
oh my gosh, me too, me too. It's iconic, one of my favorites. So you're a graduate of Carnegie Mellon, I saw, which is the same as who I talked to the other day.
Kevin William Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I actually didn't graduate. I left halfway
okay.
through my junior year, but I went there for 2.5 years. Yeah.
Okay. So what made you choose to go there to study? What a good school.
Um, Truthfully, there was two guys who did the community theater that I grew up doing that did the community theater and then did went to Carnegie, and both have done really well out of it. And uh, truthfully, it was like the best option I think I had. And I had a dream to go. I really didn't think I would get in. Truthfully, like I had auditioned for Michigan the day before it, and it
That's
was such a fine audition for me. Like I did it so okay, and I left knowing like that I'm not gonna get in there. And then I heard that same day how little people got into Carnegie every year, and was like, oh, I don't think I have a chance, so I might as well just like go in there and like be loose, have fun, and try and knock their socks off instead of like worrying about doing good enough, I guess, which is what I felt like I did in my Michigan
getting
callback. And that energy seemed to work for me. And I ended up getting in, and it seemed like a pretty no-brainer decision. I almost went to Baldwin Wallace actually,
oh,
because I visited and I really loved the class that would have been the class above me. I really liked their energy and stuff. But I did end up choosing Carnegie. Yeah.
what about the like environment at Carnegie Mellon made you like go, this is the right school for me? And like,
Yeah.
what was the most valuable takeaway you learned while you were there?
Okay. The reason I almost chose Baldwin Wallace over Carnegie is because the vibe was so great, in terms of the people at Baldwin Wallace. And when I visited Carnegie, I think the day I visited, there was like only one guy who like really talked to me, because everyone was taking it so seriously and like was listening and was in the class. And I think although that almost put me off, it's part of the reason I loved it so much, because everyone takes it very seriously there. And once I was there, it wasn't as like kind of cold as it might have seemed it might be, everyone there is very like fun and loose. And uh, I think the biggest thing I took away from it was how to be a kind of complete artist. Like I write music now, I write scripts, I try to direct little things, I obviously act and sing and play instruments and stuff. And I just have an attraction towards like being creative and creating stuff, which I guess are the same thing. And I think that's what I took away from Carnegie. They really open up your world to try and discover yourself and see what you're interested in. And of course, that is immediately applicable to being present in a scene with somebody. When you understand yourself better, you can live more truthfully, I guess, with somebody in a moment. And yeah, it was a great time. I think I learned I would not be the same artist or actor today if I didn't get the opportunity to go then.
And it's like since then you've done a little bit of everything. You've dived into theater, and you've dived in, you're into like TV and film, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You were in a TV show recently, Rise of the Pink Ladies, the Grease prequel.
Mhm.
And speaking of an important part of like any theater kid's childhood, kind of like Les Mis, what was it like to be part of that prequel story? And did you watch Grease growing up?
Yeah, I had done I don't know what you would call it, even like a class or workshop with my oldest sister, Amanda. She like choreographed and did this workshop where it was Grease. And I remember it clearly because I had to wear, I think, one of my other sister's leather jackets because I didn't have one and it was super tight and small on me. It was dumb, but it was very fun. So, and I had seen the movie and I think I had seen different stage versions of it as well. And doing the show was such a cool experience. And the reason I loved it so much, other than it being kind of my first bigger thing that I got the opportunity to do,
Huge.
is the writers and the creators took this world that is kind of pinholed in the movie in terms of there's some more problematic elements of it, or it's very dated, and they really tried to make it, they took a yearbook from the 1950s and they called every single person from this yearbook and they got a lot of people who were willing to talk about their story of what it was like growing up in California, Southern California in the 1950s. And they tried to tell those stories to a T. So every character is based on somebody that they actually talked to and like got real life stories to weave in. And so it like made it so interesting. It wasn't just about this kind of one group of people. You got a very uh, full story of what it would have been like to be in the 1950s in Southern
Yeah.
California, which is super cool.
And you played Buddy in the show. Did you
Mm.
get to talk to anyone who kind of inspired that character?
No, I didn't.
Well,
Yeah,
how do
but
you go? How much freedom did you have creating the character for the TV?
yeah. Um, the character was fully written by the time I got my hands on the script. And with Buddy and Soda, to be honest, they both have very huge chunks of themselves that overlap with who I am. And so it wasn't the hardest like digging in, acting, creating this character, but he does have a lot of darker sides of things that I don't quite get, um and a lot of things he had to work through that I didn't have to. And so that was kind of where the creation of that was, and his where he doesn't see and the things that he's not aware of that he has to then become aware of, social cues and things that I then had to build into the character,
And
which is super fun.
three-dimensional characters are like kind are the best. I feel like they're the most interesting. Like when you're watching a TV show, you're like, how is this character's story gonna play out
Yeah.
every episode? And also, I have to talk about the musical numbers in the show
Mhm.
because the filming of them is insane. What went into filming those musical numbers behind the scenes? Because I mean, based on watching them, I assume multiple shots and like it took all day pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, every single number had at least like a full day of shooting. I think some of them maybe had two. Um, and then before that, we would do a few days of rehearsal and mixed in with the shooting that we were doing of the scenes and the rest of the show. They were so fun to do, though. The music, I love the music so much, and we had such a killer choreo team. And the way that each different director would kind of tackle the shooting of it was so cool to watch. And the reason I'm so proud of the show is because I think it took so many like huge swings. Like doing 3 original songs per episode seems ridiculous to me, and still seems ridiculous to me, even having been a part of a project that did it. And it was just so cool to be around this kind of constant creativity of how do we get this done?
It's like it's kind of inspiring, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that creative team is so killer, and they work their butts off on that show.
So you mentioned like being creative yourself. Is one of would one of your goals in the future be to like write original songs used in a project like that?
Hmm. I think first I want to release a lot of the original songs that I've wrote in my own worlds. and tour them and do stuff with them. But someday I would like to do something like that. Maybe a musical, maybe some type of movie musical or something like that. But it's not really my style, but I do think my style has a little bit of it just because I come from that world, and I think it'd be fun, and I would want a collaborator to write this script with me. Although I would like to be a part of writing the script as well. Yeah, that'd be super fun.
You're like, I want to be a part of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually I live in LA, so I actually know Cheyenne from the show from like different For the Record shows around the Los Angeles area.
Oh, incredible.
She's
Cool. Yeah,
awesome.
he was so killer on that show.
Yeah. So I want to kind of like dive into regional theater before I talk about The Outsiders.
Sure.
So, do you have a favorite regional theater production or like school production of a show that you've done and why? And what do you think it is about regional theater that's so special?
Hmm. I think I haven't done a ton of regional theater, to be honest. I've done two shows. One of them was the
Houston.
Out of Town of Outsiders, and the other
Okay.
one was Cinderella, which I
I,
just recently did, and that was a beautiful time. I think the one I'll talk about, I did a play in college called Blood at the Root by Dominique Morisseau, and it's a beautiful play. It's six-person cast, yes, yes. And the reason it was so special is because we had a director that created a community between the six of us and our assistant director and Tim. And he would do things like one of the days he said, I'm kind of tired. I don't want to block this scene. You guys block it. And like walked out of the room. And at first we were all like, what the screw this? Like, we're not supposed to be doing this. But then we all like came together and we're like, if we're going to do this, let's do something cool with it. And we did this whole movement piece for this scene, or this transition for the scene. And he came back in and he kept the whole thing in the show, where we had this assistant director who was a director in our class at school, and he would just randomly one day was like, Stuart, this is your scene, get up there and knock it out of the park. And he did it, and it just created this beautiful space of collaboration, and something that I've kind of been seeking ever since, to be in spaces like that. I think Outsiders is a beautiful example of another leader who like really knew how to create a space where everyone can bring their best selves to it and bring their best artist selves to it. Because that's when art becomes really special, is when you allow everyone to give pieces to the show.
Collaboration, yeah. And like learning how to work together and like learning kind of like how to, I mean, I guess you all learned how to block the show and figure out everything by yourselves,
Mhm. Yeah,
which is
it's cool.
really cool.
And also, for me, like, I want to direct things someday. I don't know when, where, or why, but someday I will. And
Yes.
it has helped. I directed something in college, and it helped inform that process as well.
Wow. Is there like a dream show that you'd want to direct or like an original show?
It would be original. It'd be something I write, and I don't know if it would be. I don't think it'd be stage. I think it'd be more film.
Okay, okay. Interesting.
A lot of
Why,
dreams and ambitions here, you know.
can I ask why film versus stage?
Hmm. I think I am so fascinated by. I grew up doing a lot of theater stuff, and I am by no means an expert or have mastered that craft yet. Hopefully someday I'll be somewhere close to that. But I have done so much less film, and I think it intrigues me so much, and the way you can use the camera and the angles and how tight or not tight the shot is, and all these different lenses you can use. It just intrigues me so much. I think there's so much to do with it, as well as there's so much to do with theater. But I think for the stuff that I write, I see it more as um a film world. I don't know, it's the way my head sees it, I guess.
I I wonder, is it, did you like take any inspiration from like watching the like scenes, the musical numbers in Rise of the Pink Ladies? Because those are so brilliantly edited too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been a huge movie buff my whole life. My dad grew up showing me all these movies, so I think that's kind of like, even though I did more theater growing up, I watched so many movies that that's kind of the way my head kind of translates stories, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Film. Yeah. Same here. Same here. I want
Yeah.
to be on like a movie set, work with anything someday.
Yeah, yeah. Love that.
Yeah. Behind the scenes though. So I want to get into The Outsiders because
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite books that I read in school ever. And I was so excited when I heard that it was becoming a stage show because I'm such a Broadway fan.
Yeah.
So, what was your audition process like for The Outsiders? You were in it at La Jolla Playhouse pre-Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how did you find out about it and what made you want to audition?
I got a tape from my agent when I was shooting Grease Rise of the Pink Ladies. And the tape was initially for Bob Sheldon,
Oh,
the main Soch. And I was really excited to do it because I had heard about the musical when I was, I think, still in high school. It was supposed to be at the Goodman. Um, and COVID hit and it wasn't able to continue, or I guess maybe that was when I was in college, but I had heard about the musical a long time ago, and I was really interested in it. I grew up reading the book. It was one of my mom's favorite movies, and I was excited to audition for Bob as well because even though Buddy and Bob are both Soches, Bob is a more torturedly kind of evil character,
y-
and not to everyone's a full human, not to put him in a box as well, but the way he comes out in the show is much worse. And I actually asked my audition as well. I actually asked my agent as well if there was any auditions for the Greasers because I would have loved to do one of them. And he was like, "No, they cast all the Greasers. We just have Bob." So I did Bob. Had a great time doing Bob. And while I was doing Bob, Brody, who plays Ponyboy, played Sodapop in the workshop before La Jolla, and
Oh,
they lost their Pony Boy and he transitioned over to Pony Boy, so there was opening for Soda Pop. And I had known Brody for a few years and I'd been going in for Bob. And so I got to go in for Soda Pop and the rest is history, I guess.
wow. And like going into the audition, having previously seen the movie, do you like focus at all on like the film and the iconic actor who like played all these roles before? Is that
Yeah.
like does that go into your head like when you walk into an audition room? Because I feel like that's so cool to be like a part of the same thing
Yeah.
these huge icons are a part of.
Yeah, I think there's definitely no way that I could keep it out completely, but especially when I'm trying to create a character and there's such deep source material like the book. Like in the movie, Soda Pop doesn't get a lot because if you read the book, he's described or stories are told about him a lot, but he's not like actively in the story as much as some of the other characters. And so for me, building the character, and especially in the stage production when I do get to be in a little bit more than I think Rob Lowe got to be in the movie, um, I really looked at the book because I wanted to take all of the details that Ponyboy spit out, and it's such a beautiful description of a human being, Soda Pop is. And I wanted to take that and reflect it on stage, as well as like there's definitely a little bit of what Rob Lowe did that lives in what I did too. So yeah.
Yeah. So how has your portrayal of Soda Pop changed since from La Jolla to the Broadway stage?
Hmm, that's a great question. Um, when my first take, my first chance, my first swing at Soda was a lot about his looseness, and he has this vigor and love for life that I really admired. And he's able to stay light in a lot of situations, and he's has this deep love for his two brothers. And he's not very book smart at all, but I think he's very emotionally intelligent. Like he sees people and he feels their feelings. Now, I don't know if he knows how to speak on them all the time or like properly deal with them, but I think he feels it and he sees it, and in his own way tries and makes them better or is there for them. But I focused a lot on that section of Soda in La Jolla. And because I felt like I had that kind of in my grasp and under my belt when I came to New York to start doing it this year, it was a lot about deepening that and taking what are the things that are harder for Soda to deal with. Before the story takes place, he has, what he thinks is the love of his life, Sandy Whitman, and she gets pregnant and her parents make her have an abortion and she's like sent off. And so he doesn't see her anymore. And it's terribly hard for him. And it happens in the same year that his parents pass away. And so, like, show opens, Sodapop is not in a good place. And yet, he's being told through the lens that Ponyboy sees him through. And so Ponyboy still sees him as this guy who's loose with life and loves it and smiles at everything, even when he shouldn't, and things like that. And so for me, it was how do I do kind of what I was doing in La Jolla, but give you pictures of like the depth of what he actually is dealing with at the same time as all of this, and how hard it is for him. And me and Danya, our director, talked about how, like, with his parents or with Sandy, he can't talk about it because if he talks about it, he like loses it. And
Yeah.
there's a part in the book where Ponyboy talks about how he had this horse, Mickey Mouse, and it wasn't his horse, but he took care of the horse for like a more wealthy family. And the wealthy family eventually decided to sell the horse, and he like cried for days when that happened. And so I kind of took that as, okay, when Sodapop gets emotional, which does not happen very often, it's like everything comes out. He loses it. And so, like, in the first scene I have with Ponyboy, he asks about Sandy, and in La Jolla, I would talk about it. And I would tell him all about how I felt about Sandy in the situation, but they cut that little section for New York, which makes sense. And it makes sense because I don't think he knows how to talk about these things yet. And
He's figuring it out.
we kind of use justification as that for being like, oh, he can't, if he would talk about this, he would lose it. So he has to push the question away and move on to something else.
He like bottles everything up, and then when it comes out, everything comes out all at once. But he's also like this caring brother, and like and I mean, in an adult position in
Yeah.
the story, because he's taking care of everyone,
Yeah.
so to say. So, what was your reaction when you found out that the show was transferring to Broadway and that you were going to be part of it on Broadway and make your Broadway debut?
I I was so ecstatic. I was in LA. I was living with my best friend Maximo. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's still a surreal feeling, and there's still so many times I look around and am so very grateful for the opportunity and the moment of it, and the fact that I think other people are seeing and loving the show as much
Yes.
as we see it and love it, and that's incredibly special. And also, it gets really hard and my mind gets very bogged down sometimes. And so, like, even doing an interview like this is so good for me to remind myself of how long I've wanted it for and how blessed I am to get to tell this particular story and with the group of people I get to do it with. Yeah, that's so cool.
And you get to be part of the original Broadway cast of this show.
Yeah.
So, like, everything you all do is recorded and released.
Hmm.
And, like, it goes down in history, kind
Yeah.
of like goes down in the archives forever. Like, your voices are on Spotify forever, like
Mhm.
Apple Music.
Yeah.
What has been the coolest part about being part of that original Broadway cast so far? I know the Tonys are coming up, and like in the fall, you have the Thanksgiving Day parade and stuff. But I'm sure there's been a lot so far.
Yeah, it's kind of been nonstop cool, nonstop exhausting, nonstop great, a lot of nonstop. I think the soundtrack was the coolest part, the cast album rather. Listening to that for the first time, I expected it to be great, but I definitely was. We had the head of Sony Broadway who got up and he gave this speech before we all listened to it for the first time, and the speech talked about how, this album will reach more people than the show actually ever will get the chance to, just by
Yeah.
the nature of Spotify and how available it is in Apple Music and streaming rather. And I didn't really think about that before, and it made me super excited and super nervous. And then we listened to it, and I just was blown away by the level that they were able to make this beautiful album. And yeah, it was incredible.
I felt the same way when I listened to the album when it came out. I was like, okay, I was expecting this to be good, but like this exceeded my expectations.
Hell yeah.
What's your favorite song on the cast recording and why?
Hmm. I would say Little Brother. I think I love Josh's performance of it, but the first time, not but, and the first time I heard it was in my dance call for the show. And it was the first time that I was like, oh shit, this show's gonna be really freaking good.
Yeah,
And this is the first time I fell in love with it, I think. And that song has kind of continued to be my favorite song through um, the whole course of me doing the show. And that's high praise because there are so many songs that I truly love in this show.
every song has some emotional impact, even just listening to the
Yeah.
album or the cast recording. Because I mean, I haven't seen the show on stage yet. I'm coming to New York in a couple weeks, but I like just listening to it. I'm like, I feel the emotion,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
incredible that music can do that.
Yeah.
And you
It's
don't.
we had we recorded it, I think the week after opening, and it was a very busy week. It was a huge week leading up to opening. We were all very tired. We were hoping maybe we can move it to a different day, and we weren't able to move it. And I think we were all a little scared because I don't think we felt like we were at the top of our level vocally and stuff like that. And when again with the speech that the head of Sony Broadway gave, he was like, the reason we do this and in the time frame that we do it in is because we want to catch the moment of like, you've just opened, so it's still fresh, but you've had previews, so it's in your bones. And I totally see it. I see why. And even if it wasn't like our top vocal performance, which I still think it was near that, um the emotions of it really came through and it feels raw and it feels authentic. And I don't think you always get that from recording music. And I've recorded a bunch, and I don't feel like I've always gotten that. So it's cool. It's very cool.
No, I think you're exactly right. And what was it like making your Broadway debut? I didn't ask that. How do you prepare for that?
Um, in a lot of ways, I feel like I've prepared for it for a very long time. I feel by the time I stepped onto that stage, I felt so ready. Like I had done the out of town in La Jolla. I had been. I'm kind of a workhorse when it comes to this stuff. Like if I'm not working actively working a job, I'm picking up monologues and doing them every day. I'm writing music. I'm picking songs to sing. I'm writing scripts. Like I'm always in this, so it just
Still
feels
working.
like second nature to me in a way. And obviously, there was nerves that came with performing the show the first few times for an audience. I also think New York audiences are you gotta win them over. I think in other places I've performed, people are happy to see the level that a Broadway performance is at. If you're at that level, people are like, "That's awesome." But a Broadway show, you're kind of, especially a new one, they don't know what to expect. I felt like the first few weeks, people came in with their arms a little crossed, and you had to slowly uncross them. Which I think is natural. Like it's a new show. What is this gonna be? Is it gonna be good or is it gonna be bad? Um, and it was cool to feel like us as a group were able to uncross people's arms, and now people are coming in with this incredible excitement because the word of mouth has spread so far about the show, and I think they all expect something great, which comes with a different pressure of its own, you know?
Oh, definitely. And I feel you're sharing the story with like people who have maybe never seen the book, who have never seen the movie before, or read the book before in
Yeah.
their life. Because I know like I've talked to friends on the East Coast and West Coast. I grew up in Texas.
Mhm.
That's where I read it. But I've talked to friends on both coasts and they're like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, we've had a good mixture, like in terms of stage touring and the people we've met. Some people have been fans of the story for years, and some people have never heard of it, but saw the ads for the show and thought it looked cool, and it's crazy.
Love that, love that. And also like I feel like it's a little bonus to reach people because like you all aren't Moulin Rouge and like the spectacle show.
Mhm.
You all are the show with all this emotion. So like reaching these tourists and like and getting all this recognition from the theater community and even tourists is really like kind of a bonus in that one.
Don't you worry, we got plenty spectacle for you as well.
Oh, I've heard the staging is insane.
We've got rain, fire, dirt. It's crazy.
I mean, I feel like it doesn't fully like it doesn't need it, but like I've heard it's just so good. It goes along with the story so well. What's
Yeah,
your favorite scene in the show, staging wise?
that I'm a part of or that I'm not a part
Both?
of. My favorite scene I'm in is the closing scene. I don't want to spoil too much
For
for
people.
you, but it's very simple, and it feels so much like a play, and it's pretty long, but it's so well written. I just love doing it every night. Adam Rapp is as brilliant as we know, but that scene, he knocked it out of the park, and they haven't really had to touch it much since the first time I ever got the script. It's kind of been this incredibly written scene for a few years now, and maybe longer. I don't even know. It's been in process for 10 years or so. And then my favorite scene that I'm not in, staging wise, there's a song that Emma and Brody sing together, Cherry and Ponyboy, and they're kind of transitioning. They're connecting on this really deep level that they aren't able to connect with in their own kind of groups of people, the socias and the greasers. And they're walking through the drive-in theater from the concession stand to their seats, and as they're doing it, the our incredible ensemble seamlessly transitions these planks and these, cinder blocks from the seats of the movie theater to the concession stand to a different spot, and it is so cool. And I think that was so brilliantly staged.
It, insane. I've heard you all earn like every Tony nomination that you've gotten, and you talking about that last scene, I'm like, I think I know which scene this is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I might sob during this scene.
yeah. It's gonna be good.
Oh my gosh. What was your reaction? What was your reaction and how did you celebrate when you heard that the show was nominated for 12 Tony Awards? Because
Okay, in truth, that was my expectation. I'm just happy that it happened. I think, and maybe my expectation was, a little bit of a dream in the clouds, but I believed in the show for a really, really long time, and not a really, really long time, since La Jolla, since I started doing it, but so like a year or so. But from the first time I got it, it wasn't what it is now. But I remember looking at it and being like, I think this could be really special, and there was enough special elements of it. And then you have this creative team that they're all these brilliant artists that trust each other, are willing to take swings at things, willing to cut things, willing to put things back in. And so throughout the year and a half that I was a part of it, I got to watch them shape it into what it is now, which I think is this brilliant piece of art. And so when the nominations came out, I was just happy that they were recognized, that it was recognized, because I think everyone who got a nom in our show deserves it, because it's a true piece of collaboration that is affecting people, and that's what I think art is all about at the end of the day. And so I was ecstatic. The one I was most ecstatic about was Sky Lakota Lynch, because um his role is more subtle in the show. Like, obviously he has some big Tony Award winning moments, but I don't think he has as many of those moments like just written in as somebody like Dallas has. And Sky is such a humble performer that his brilliance, I feel like, can almost be lost sometimes on the audience, because Johnny as a human being avoids being perceived and seen. And so there's some things that he's doing that either me in the scene or watching off stage that I see that I'm like, wow, that is just incredible. I hope people notice that, because it's in the back of a scene, or it's in the subtlety in the way he says this line, and he never takes up space or too much space because his character doesn't, and I think you could have a different person come into that character, and I could see them like really overplaying the dramaticism of it, and like make it and really act it in a way that might seem impressive, but what Sky is doing is the most impressive thing I think you can do as an actor. um that was my soapbox about Sky. That
Oh,
he got nommed, and I was like, because I think I expected like the Dally nom, because I think that character has Little Brother, this huge song where he gets to break down, in front of everybody. It's kind of the more showy. You have the opportunity for the big acting, which I don't think Johnny does as much. And so I was happy that they saw him and recognized him for the brilliant performance he's giving.
well, now I'm gonna, when I see the show, I'm gonna like pay attention to everything going on in the background too. That's one of my actual favorite things to do as like, uh, as an audience member, is to
Yeah.
watch everything happening on the stage.
It's a show you really should see twice, because our every single actor on that stage is really truly some some of the most top-notch people I've worked with in my life. And obviously the story is incredible, but everything going on between like the stories of all the ensemble members that you're not getting up front are being told in the background of the show. And if you were to see it a second time and like watch, this Soch guy, or what is Ace doing, or things like that, you're gonna get a full story. It's crazy.
Yep, yep. It's like very, it's telling the story of everyone on that stage, which is
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah.
So, so if Rob Lowe came to see the show, what would you say to him?
What would I say to him? I would probably have to think of some questions to ask. I have been a fan of his career. I've read his memoir. He seems like a very kind human being, and he seems like a good to his family and stuff like that. And so my questions might be more towards how he's been able to kind of keep his head on straight in this crazy industry, being and seeing the success that he's seen.
And I mean, I've seen a couple interviews of like actors who are like, I want to go see the show. So I don't think it's out of the question.
Oh, I think he's gonna come.
Yeah,
I believe it.
he should come. He should definitely go.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to the Tony nominations how much you and the cast believe in the show. I think that's why this show is as successful as
Yeah.
it is, and as it will continue to be.
That's where it starts. It always starts with a belief that you can do something great, I guess.
Are you all allowed to tease anything about the Tony performances or no?
I don't know, which means
Let's
no.
be safe. But I know you all are performing at the Tonys.
Yeah,
So, like, so everyone watch the Tonys. What is your dream role in theater?
in theater. I want to originate a lot of stuff. Um, my favorite part about performing is the creation of a character, and I think it's so fascinating. I think it grows me in empathy, and so my goal would be to continue to get to work on projects that I'm creating things for. um However, my dream role was Jack Kelly for so long. That was like, I think that's so basic. I think that's what every guy wanted growing up. But that was like, yeah, if there was some version of Newsies that kind of took a twist or a spin on it, or even just like a bigger theater doing a short run of it, I'd be very down to do that.
Yes. You're like just putting it out there in the world if anyone
Yeah.
wants to.
If anyone wants to hit my line, let me know. I would kill it. I would kill it for you. I promise.
I could see it. I could see it. There's some like similarities between the Outsiders posters and like there's some Newsies feel in them, I feel like, in
Oh
a way.
yeah. The energy of the show, I mean, I think Newsies has a brotherhood underlying theme, and
Definitely.
I think that's the biggest theme in Outsiders, and so it does have some similarities to it.
Oh, absolutely. No, I can see it from the posters, and I'm like, this is definitely gonna be as big of a hit.
Yeah.
So, how do you work on self-confidence in this industry?
That one has been a question as of the like past 2 weeks for me, I think. There's like imposter syndrome is a big thing, and I'm a very confident person, or like I would consider myself to be. And you can't help but have, it's confidence is kind of an up and down wave that you hope you're slowly moving upwards as it waves up and down. But um I think you have to have good people surrounding you that are speaking positivity in your life. You have to have a good handle of the fact that what we do is a little bit dumb. Like it is so there was an interview with Joaquin Phoenix, and he was like, you have to take it so seriously, but at the same time, at the end of the day, when you go home, remind yourself how stupid it is that like I spent all day trying to pretend to be not myself and for a camera so that other people think that I'm this other person. It is a silly thing that we do, and I think it can be really powerful. And to keep the confidence level and the looseness and not get super bogged down about every mistake you make or having a rough night, because you're gonna have it. It's like if you're an athlete,
Like
sometimes,
theater.
yeah, it's live theater. Even the best players have games where they score 0 points. Even the best actors have shows where they bomb,
Yep.
I don't think I've quite bombed yet, but I've had some rougher nights, and I'm sure the bomb will come. Uh, but yeah, I think you have to have a looseness about how you hold yourself within it, which allows you to have fun, which I think allows you to grow in confidence. And confidence is a skill. It's a thing that it's not something you have or don't. Just like anything else, I think some people might have a bigger inclination towards it or not, but it's something that you have to invest in consistently, and that comes with practice, and it comes with and getting in the work every day, so that when you step on stage, you feel confident to do your thing. Um, yeah, it's a whole big topic.
Does it help with confidence in kind of going back to the Outsiders? Does it help with confidence in creating a character for the stage to have the book author kind of involved with the show in a way?
Yeah,
Because I heard that she's super involved.
yeah, she's we've met her a bunch of times. We've gotten a bunch of opportunities to ask her any questions we had about the characters, and I honestly didn't have a ton to ask her because I felt like I had a great grasp on the character through what she had written. But the one thing I did want to ask her is if she had based that character on anybody in her life. And she said she had based Sodapop on Ponyboy was based on her, and Sodapop was based on her cousin who she dedicated the book to. And even just that told me everything I needed to know about Sodapop, because she had such a deep love for her cousin, and she told me more about her cousin and who that was to her. And I was like, and so okay, that's why I then need to be to Ponyboy as much as I can. This person that he would dedicate a book to.
Oh my goodness, that's so sweet. I
Yeah.
actually I had no clue.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a widely known fact, but
that's fun.
that melts my heart.
Yeah,
So before I get to my last question, I want to ask where can people follow you on social media to keep up with what you're doing?
yeah. Instagram, TikTok, Jason.s.schmidt on both. My music is on Spotify as well as the Grease music and the Outsiders music and Apple Music, everywhere you get your music.
Streaming everywhere.
I've been discriminating against Apple Music, I feel like, in this interview. It's just because I use Spotify.
I'm a Spotify user too. So I always Apple Music sucks, but Apple Music is still
I
great.
don't love you, Apple Music users.
It's still great. So lastly, do you have anything else you'd want to promote that's not the Outsiders, or do you just want to say like come see the Outsiders on
Come
Broadway?
see the Outsiders. I have a song that I just released a few months ago called My Ego Loves You. I
Ooh,
think you'll love it. And I'm going to be releasing a song called Growing Up in the next month or two. So stay tuned for that.
ooh, exciting. So
Yeah,
follow on all the streaming platforms is what you're
yeah,
saying.
follow on the streaming platforms, follow on social media so you get updated on when the releases will be. I'm doing a bunch of dumb TikToks on TikTok and they're funny. So go take a look at those.
And I'll post everything in the description below
Sounds good.
so people can find you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining to chat with me today. I've had
Super
a
fun.
blast and
Thank
I
you so much
can't
for
wait to
having me.
listen to all your songs.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know when you come see the show. I would love to see you afterwards.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.